ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My glasses is ugly, but you can excuse me.
All good.
My name is Giselle Gavin, and I want to welcome you to my home, Betances Houses in the South Bronx. I've lived here for 24 years. My husband and I raised our 3 boys here, and now we split the apartment with our roommate, a cat named Drew. For the last 6 years, I've been TA president at Betances. That's a couple years longer than you've been in office, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Let me know if you need a few tips. During the day, I work in the housekeeping department of the New York Palace Hotel. So you better believe I know what keeping house means. Every day we keep that hotel beautiful and clean. I wish I could say that Betances is beautiful and clean every day. Unfortunately, here, if something's broken, it tends to stay broken. The heat goes out. I remember we had shattered glass on the door for months. The hallway and common space are filthy. Now, over the past few years, we have made some improvement. We have gotten better lighting, gotten better relationship with police officers. Things have gotten safer, but we have so much more to go. Because you never learn to accept a night without or a broken front door. But when it happens enough, you learn to live with it. Well, we don't have to live this way. Rad worked at Ocean Bay. It brought them new kitchen, cleaner hallways, reliable heat. The fixes they deserve. These are fixes we deserve up here. Rad will make it happen. Yeah, yeah. I love this development like I love my neighborhood. It's diverse, it's friendly, it got history, a history that I am proud to be a part of. So I don't have any intention of moving out anytime soon. Rad, you're stuck with me. That's why I am so excited that the mayor is here today to talk about these improvements. So, Mr. Mayor, once again, we welcome you at Betances Houses. We are happy you're here. I have waited for 24 long, cold years, so I am ready to see these changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Excellent. Well, Giselle, it is obvious why you are the president and the head of the Residents Association, and you speak with real passion and real authority as to what is needed to make Betances Houses all it should be. So I want to say I appreciate very much your commitment to all of your neighbors, your commitment to making things better. That's what leaders are supposed to do. Let's all give Giselle a big round of applause and thank her. And I want to say to everyone who's here, everybody from the Betances community, I would ask all New Yorkers to really focus on the good people who live in public housing. 400,000 New Yorkers who work hard every day, who care about their families and their neighbors, who want to make things better, and are looking for NYCHA and the city to partner with them. Too often I feel that people who live in public housing are portrayed in a way that takes away some of their humanity, some of their strength. Sometimes they are portrayed, in my opinion, as victims. I don't think people here are victims. I think these are good people fighting for a good way of life, demanding more results. And these are the folks who are the backbone of New York City. These are the folks who make New York City work. Let's celebrate them. Let's celebrate them for all the good things. We are here today to begin a process of change. For months, we have talked about the fact that we're going to have to do something very different with public housing in New York City. 400,000 people rely on it. It's time for big systemic changes. Today, we're going to unveil a beginning. As I said publicly, this is just a beginning. By the end of the year, you will see a formal plan for the major changes that have to happen in public housing that will help us to bring in the vast resources we need. I'm going to say up front, and I'm sure I'll be saying in response to some of the questions from the media, $31 billion is the level of need in public housing in New York City. We don't have $31 billion today, but we believe that the plans we're putting forward are going to help us to get a lot of those resources in and make a huge difference in the lives of residents. I want to thank everyone who is here with us. You're going to hear from the chair of NYCHA, Stan Brezhnev, in a moment, but I also want to thank other members of my administration who played a crucial role in putting together this new vision that, again, begins to be unveiled today, but will be formalized in the coming weeks. I want to thank our Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development, Alicia Glenn, the General Manager of NYCHA, Vida Mostacholo. Both of them have been working night and day on this new plan that I think is going to have a huge impact on people in public housing. Also want to thank some of the leaders of community organizations and faith leaders who are here with us and the organizations themselves that want to play a constructive role in rejuvenating public housing and helping people who live in our communities. I want to thank Monsignor Kevin Sullivan of Catholic Charities, a crucial partner in all we do. I want to thank Masjid al-Wadud, the Darus Salam Islamic Community, the Northwest Bronx Clergy Coalition, Community Board 1, and Mothers on the Move. Let's give them all a round of applause. We all know the history. It's not a good history. In fact, today on the front page of the New York Times was a very detailed look at decades of neglect suffered by the residents of public housing. This is not a good history. There's too many instances where the city, NYCHA, and other partners, the federal and state level, did not do all that should have been done. Our job is, of course, to understand that history, but to transcend it. We're not going to be lost in the mistakes of the past. We have to be the generation that fixes them. I want that to be very, very clear. Any question about the past, I'll entertain, but I'll always tell you the crucial question is, where are we going from here? What happened in the past and examining that is important, but it's not going to change the lives of the people standing behind me. What's going to change the lives of the people standing behind me is more resources used better to fix problems. And that's why today we're going to focus on the investments we have to make. To date, this administration has committed $3.7 billion in investments that were never made previously, that were not legally mandated. We believe they were the right thing to do. We started that with our first budget in the spring of 2014. We made a decision to agree to an additional investment in a consent decree with the federal government, $1.2 billion minimum investment. As I'm sure many of you saw last week, the judge overseeing that case decided to reject the initial draft of the consent decree. I made clear instantly that the city of New York, regardless of the outcome with the consent decree, will stand by its commitment to invest an additional $1.2 billion in NYCHA. We believe in that commitment, and when you combine that with the $3.7 billion that has already been spent, we're talking now a grand total since 2014 of $5 billion in new resources for the people of public housing. We're going to stand by all those commitments. Now, we cannot alone solve the problem. This is something I think everyone understands, but it bears repeating. There's no way that with the resources of the Housing Authority itself and the City of New York, there's no way we could reach $31 billion in the time frame we need to. We must bring in outside resources. We must work with the federal government, which is obviously the single biggest source of resources and the legal power to make the changes. That's why we're going to focus now on the kind of public-private partnerships that have worked. Everyone here knows about Section 8. You know about Section 8 vouchers for individuals, but the other piece of Section 8 is Project Section 8, which means when an entire housing development is covered by Section 8 and the subsidies that it provides. That is the essence of what we're doing through the RAD program. And we want to do it on a very big scale. Section 8, on a development-by-development basis, has worked. It's a proven methodology. What does it mean? It means that entire development is renovated, up and down, public spaces and apartments. It means new kitchens. It means new bathrooms, new windows. It means upgrading the entire development to make it the kind of place Giselle was talking about, that has what people are really looking for. Now, you could say, is that just a dream? Is that something that, sounds great but has never happened? Well, you're going to hear in a few minutes from Congressman Gregory Meeks, who is one of the most senior members of our House delegation, who fought hard to make sure that this type of approach would help residents in his community. And he can tell you from firsthand experience about the Ocean Bay development in his district and the change that this type of approach with RAD and project-based Section 8 has made, the profound change it's made in people's lives. I've been in those buildings, I've been in those apartments, I've seen it with my own eyes as well. People who are living at Compost Plaza in Manhattan can tell you one part of that development has gone through this approach. The other we've announced we'll get it soon. But they can tell you about the difference it's making in their lives. This is not a theoretical idea. This is an idea that works in practice right here in New York City. So at Ocean Bay, we've seen tremendous progress. At Compost Plaza, we've seen tremendous progress. I'm here to announce that you will soon be seeing tremendous progress right here at Betances. Giselle told me I had to say that. But it's true. This is the formal announcement that Betances will be one of the next developments to benefit from this extraordinary approach. Now, we had announced previously that we wanted to use this focus on project-based Section 8 on a much bigger scale. And we said our hope had been that 20,000 apartments would be renovated with this approach over the next 8 years. We are now upping that goal substantially. We believe that this approach can work on a much bigger scale for the people of public housing here in New York City. And we believe the federal government is receptive to going to a bigger scale here in what is the biggest public housing authority in America. So our new goal will be 62,000 apartments that will be renovated over the next 10 years. 62,000 apartments that we can make as good as they should be, the quality standard that the people of public housing deserve. What does that mean in reality? That is tripling the number of apartments that will benefit from this approach. And for human beings, I want you to hear how many people will be reached. 100,000 public housing residents will get their buildings and their apartments renovated. 100,000 people will benefit from this new approach, including the people right here behind me. We're very, very excited of what it's going to mean, but we also have to make really clear what it is not, because I have gotten this question. I think I've done 58 town hall meetings around the city. I think at almost every one I've gotten the question about the future of public housing. So what we're talking about today with project-based Section 8, with RAD, is a way to protect everything that we care about in terms of public housing. It's a way to make sure that the people who are in those apartments stay in those apartments, that they have the tenancy rights they have right this minute, that they have the rent levels they have right this minute. 30% of income, the standard that's always been held in public housing, continues. That the public sector, NYCHA and the City of New York, retain control over the land and the decisions. So this is a way to get a lot more resources in and protect all of the things that are the decisive factors in what makes public housing so important to New Yorkers. I want to tell you what this is not. This is not privatization. We do not believe in privatization, and we will not allow it. This is a way to get private dollars in to help us achieve a public good. We believe that public housing has been crucial to New York City's past, it's crucial to our present, and it's crucial to our future, and we're going to protect public housing in New York City. To close, I just want to say very clearly, and I'll say a few words in Spanish. I set a goal for this entire 4-year term to make New York City the fairest big city in America, to make sure that New Yorkers felt their lives were getting more fair all the time, whether it's in the relationship between police and community, whether it's in the experience that parents and grandparents have with their kids going to public school, or whether it's in the experience of people looking for affordable housing and getting affordable housing and quality affordable housing. These are the marks of a society that is fair to everyone. We have a long way to go, but this is one of the building blocks. Turning public housing around in New York City is one of the ways to ensure that we become the fairest big city in America. And it's going to take a lot of work, and anyone who tries to suggest there are quick fixes or overnight solutions, I will stare them in the eye and say that's not the reality. The problems Giselle described did not happen overnight. They won't be fixed overnight. But we will rebuild NYCHA, brick by brick. We will use these resources to fix building after building after building, apartment after apartment after apartment, to give people a better life. That is what we are committed to. A few words in Spanish. Nuestra misión desde el primer día ha sido hacer lo mejor por los 400,000 neoyorquinos en NYCHA. Es por eso que estamos ampliando la gestión público-privada para reparar y renovar todo lo que merecen los residentes de NYCHA. No vamos a abandonar a los residentes de NYCHA. Las viviendas siempre serán públicas y asequibles. With that, I want to turn to the man who I've charged with achieving really fundamental change in NYCHA. His mandate is to be bold and to do things that have not been done before and needed to be done. And that's a tall order, but the chair of the Housing Authority has already seen a number of really tough missions in his career, and he's seen them through to success. He's one of the people that brought New York City back from the brink of the fiscal crisis of the 70s and 80s. One of the people that turned around our Health and Hospitals Corporation. He knows how to make a difference. My pleasure to introduce the chair, Stan Brezhnev.
What can I say after that? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Betances Houses residents, and particularly our gracious hostess, Giselle Denise Gavin. Thank you for hosting us. The mayor has described what's going on here. I'm really proud to be here because this is an important day for the residents of Betances houses, bringing Betances to the status of project-based Section 8 promises significant improvements for the hundreds of families who live here. Even as important, though, is it is an early step in an effort to bring project-based Section 8 financing to many, many more units of housing within NYCHA. As the mayor noted, we seek to transform by the year 2028 62,000 units, better than a third of all of the units currently within NYCHA, and well over 100,000 residents. More than a third of NYCHA residents will see nearly $13 billion of renovations and major repairs to their homes. Project-based Section 8, the RAD program as the manifestation of that funding, is the kind of approach that offers the ability to go to scale in addressing the problems of NYCHA. The mayor noted that a recent needs analysis for NYCHA totaled $32 billion. In thinking about how to attack that in a way that makes a dramatic difference for a substantial amount of the tenants, project-based Section 8 is essentially the only big game in town, and therefore that public-private partnership has to be embraced by us as quickly and as effectively as we can. There is another byproduct, though, of focusing on the RAD program, and that is that it will free up NYCHA and resources to focus on the remaining parts of NYCHA. Because while this is an ambitious program that has great promise for the people who live in NYCHA, we will not be, as the mayor has noted, forgetting that there are many problems and issues in the balance of NYCHA, and we will be using those resources in a more focused, in a more reliable, in a more effective way over the coming months and years, so that inroads can be made in the same kinds of problems while the RAD program unfolds in the 62,000 units.
All right. You got more or you done?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I know. Thank you, Stan. Now, I mentioned before Congressman Greg Meeks, who has been a very strong voice for public housing, defending the residents, but also has recognized that we need the resources to make people's lives better, and that the federal government has a crucial role to play. So this is a voice of authority to me because he wants to strike that balance of protecting the rights and the needs of residents, protecting public housing long term, but also getting real resources in, without which we cannot make the right changes. He's been right in the middle of making sure that Ocean Bay was everything it was meant to be. And Congressman, I want to say thank you for that. I want to say congratulations that you will now be in the majority, a great place to be. And I look forward to calling you chairman or whatever various titles you will be gaining now. But your leadership is going to be very good for the people of New York City. And we want to commend you and thank you. And please help people understand what you were able to achieve with Ocean Bay and the difference it's making in people's lives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's great being in the majority. I serve on the Financial Services Committee, which deals with HUD and housing on a regular basis. But I'm here, first of all, because I would probably not be a member of Congress if it wasn't for public housing. I grew up, I lived in public housing until I finished law school. And I know how significant and how important it is. I can recall to this day my parents when they moved into a brand new housing development and the hope and aspirations it gave to them. And many of my personal friends to this day who are doing fantastic things all came out of public housing. So it is tremendously important what you're doing today, Mr. Mayor, for the future of our city, because of we don't know who lives there now. As I look out and see some of the young people in the audience, I see myself. And this is important because if you live in conditions that many are forced to live in today, it diminishes their opportunities to proceed and to progress and to be successful. And that's just what this is all about. And things have changed. So as the mayor has said, it's correct. Let's not just talk about the past. Let's talk about how we can change things and make them better so that tomorrow is better than yesterday. And that's what this program is about. So when the opportunity to have a RAD program in my district in Queens. Now, remember, this really is a program that started under former President Barack Obama. And we were able to work with Barack Obama and his administration to try to come up with an idea that would help put money into a system that had been neglected for years so that they could have a place to better live. Now, I'm going to give you extra credit, Mr. Mayor, because, you know, folks across the country looked at the RAD program, and some were for it and some were against it, et cetera. But the city of New York did something. They took another step. They just said, we're not going to just accept the RAD program as it was, even during that administration. We're going to come up with another agreement, and you call it PAC, to make sure that the protections for the residents were taking place. PAC, permanent, affordable community commitment together. So I looked at that. I compared it to what was going on. I said, this improves and makes sure that this is, in fact, public housing, and it remains public housing, because that was really concerned to me.
That's right.
And it also protected the individual so rents wouldn't go sky high. I recall very clearly 2008, the financial crisis. Many people got caught into it because their mortgages went too high. We didn't want the same thing to happen with their rents. So their rents are locked in to affordability, just as it would be under the old system. And then I went and we started going to work in the Rockaways. And I started to see the commitment of the individuals, whether in the Rockaways, it was Wavecrest Management and MDG, the commitments that they had to the tenants and the tenants' involvement in it. The tenants talking back and forth, several meetings after meetings after meetings. People in public housing getting jobs that had not had it before, which is tremendously important. Working together for community centers, and it's the kind of thing that I had the advantage of when I lived in public housing. And then watching how quickly these apartments started turning around. New bathrooms, new kitchens, new hallways, lighting doors, front doors opening with security. It changed the lives of people that were living in there. Had we not done that, they could have been living in the dilapidated conditions for decades. In fact, the seniors probably would not have made it by the time they were finished, and the young people would have never got the opportunities that they would now get under this program. So I come here, Mr. Mayor, saying I have seen firsthand a successful development in New York City, and happens to be in the 5th Congressional District, and I know there's some other places, but I am so proud of what they've accomplished. I said I wanted to be here today because to the people of Betances, let me tell you, you're in for a life-saving event. You can live as you are. You are hardworking, everyday, decent human beings who deserve a decent place to live and a decent quality life. It's coming because of this program and this mayor. Thank you very much.
Well, I thank you, Congressman. Your strong voice is going to be needed in Washington. And we're really happy you're going to be in the position you're going to be in, but I also appreciate the eyewitness to what happened at Ocean Bay and what's going to happen now at Betances. Now, representing this community, a very strong voice, and she has been for a long time on behalf of the residents of this community, and she fights for us in Albany. That's never easy, but she does it with great impact. Assembly Member Carmen Arroyo.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes a todos.
Buenas tardes.
Mr. Mayor, welcome to my district.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have to tell you something that is not a secret. I was one of the first 18 tenants that moved into Betances 38 years.
The originals.
We work in the community to make sure that this project was going to be developed in the community for the people in the community. Mr. Mayor, the heritage that you have was the disaster that was made through the years in NYCHA is something that I don't envy. As a representative of this community in Albany, I am always with my eyes open where the money goes, to make sure that my district receives the share that is needed for the people that I represent. And I am one of the legislators that have the larger amount of projects in Albany. Listening to you today, I am so happy. It's Thanksgiving week. God, thank you, because I see an open window for the future. Amen. A future that we need, that our children need, that our young generation need, that our seniors deserve. During the campaign in September, I visit apartments, I visit buildings. Mayor, there are buildings where 10 or 12 apartments are condemned. We need those apartments fixed because there are a lot of people in the community that need them. I think that your words really are very important, not only for the community, for the taxpayers, and we pay taxes. Our president doesn't, but we do.
Good line, good line.
I think that the use of the money is something very important to me, not only as a resident of this community. Now I don't qualify for NYCHA. They throw me out when I make a better salary, but I'm glad. But I live in this community. And I visit the apartments, and I visit the people. People go to my office with complaints, and it's really hard to work under the NYCHA development because the complex of a state, city, and federal laws over it. It's not an easy task. And I am not defending the mayor here. He doesn't need Carmen Arroyo to defend him. Sometimes we blame the wrong person for what happened. But there are certain laws that have to be fixed, Mr. You know that this man was a colleague of mine in the State Assembly for many years. Yes. Then we know each other very well, and we respect each other very well too. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I am here, I'm in the community, and I am alert to any problem that I can help. And I hope that after Betances, we can take Patterson and take those equipments that are in the street to hit the buildings out and fix them.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. God bless you and your staff for the work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Assembly Member, and thank you both for your extraordinary support for the residents of public housing. We're going to take questions to begin on this announcement today. Let's see, there's questions on this.
I'm sure many of these residents would love to get new kitchens and bathrooms and things for their apartments, but when they call our newsroom desperate for help, they're asking about major infrastructure, plumbing, boilers, leaking, no heat, no hot water. Does any of this money help with those concerns?
All of those concerns.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't you start since you're an eyewitness, and then we'll let Stan or Vito can speak to as well.
I would tell you, talk about new boilers, the guts of a building. Absolutely. From the ground up, it covers all of that. And, you know, when you look at, you know, coming in for repairs, et cetera, there's no question about that. So it's not just the apartments itself, it's from the guts of the building on up. It concludes everything.
From the base to the roof.
There you go. Want to add, or is that? I think that says it all. That says it all.
It has to be building by building.
Absolutely.
Success at Ocean Bay, what happened there. But in terms of getting through this winter, what my colleague just asked about, there are people right now at this moment who do not have heat or hot water in their apartments, who have fixtures torn off the walls with holes in the walls, who have rats. What can be done to at least ease the suffering for these residents as we go into the even colder months?
Look, we have to do both. We have to do everything we can to address people's suffering right now, while doing something much more fundamental for the future. If we just keep addressing problem after problem after problem but don't get to the root cause, we're not going to be helping anyone. So this is why this is so important today. We're talking about the resources to completely rehabilitate 62,000 apartments and all the rest of those buildings. That is trying to fix the problem once and for all. That's what we want to do. Now, you're right. Right now, we've got problems we have to address. So Vito, Stan can jump in, but what we've announced previously is we're trying to use a whole host of tools that, honestly, NYCHA didn't do enough of in the past. Outside contractors, outside technical experts, mechanics, who can be applied more quickly to where the heat problems are, more mobile boilers. It is not going to be perfect. I think I've been saying 31 billion stands right. When you round it off, it's closer to 32 billion. When you have a $32 billion hole, there's going to be a lot of problems. But we do believe we can help people this winter to have a better experience than last winter. You want to add to it all?
So as the mayor indicated, we've made a number of changes for this heat season. And this week, I'm going to be sharing with the mayor some additional plans to make improvements to how we deliver services this heat season.
And we also, just one other point, honestly, I have deep respect for the hardworking people at NYCHA, but NYCHA's done a lousy job of communicating with residents about their heat problems. One of the things in the announcement a few weeks ago was to say we're going to not only send out those teams, send out those mobile boilers, but then ask residents, are you experiencing an improvement in the heat situation in your home? If you're not, we have to go back. Also, something that I have instructed both Stan and Vito to focus on, there's times when the heat has to be maintained and worked on in a building. It's true in a private building, it's true in a public housing building. And what NYCHA has never done consistently is alert the residents in advance of when the heat will be down for maintenance reasons. Not because there was a breakdown, but because they're trying to avoid a breakdown by doing the normal maintenance they have to do. That's kind of 101, to tell people when something like that is needed and let them prepare for it. Hasn't been a strong suit. I think Stan and Vito are going to put in place a variety of things quickly to allow people to have that information. Courtney.
In the beginning of your remarks, talked about the time story.
Yes.
The time story obviously showed that your administration tested all of these agreements after the health department suggested going in there. You mentioned the state failing, predecessor failing, private failing, federal government failing, we all failing. However, you've been in office 5 years now. Do you accept some responsibility?
Of course, and we've covered this ground, but I'll cover it again. No, it's very painful to me that some of this clearly happened on our watch. The origins are not on our watch, and I think the story today points that out more clearly than ever. We were handed an already fundamentally broken situation, and honestly, we didn't even know some of these problems existed. We did not know, we've said it before, we did not realize that the inspections had stopped years before. And some people made some very big mistakes, and those people are gone. The new leadership, I think, is doing a very commendable job under tough circumstances trying to fix things once and for all so that never happens again. And obviously, inspections are now happening regularly, remediation is happening regularly. But of course I have to take responsibility, we all of us up here have to take responsibility from the administration for what happened on our watch. And we are pained that some of what is happening we didn't know, because we would have fixed it. So to the point about the contesting the health department instructions, several months ago, Stan and Vito ordered that stopped. That from that point on, when the health department said remediate, now NYCHA just remediates, period. So some of this is, Courtney, you could debate what's worse, knowing about something and not acting on it, or not even knowing about it. What I think is the truth of what we've experienced these last few years, we didn't know about a number of these things. When we found out about them, we acted. I didn't know those health department reports were being contested in that way. It was a no-brainer to say, we're not doing that. Once we understood that, we're not doing that. Please.
An actual program here at RAD. You said you were optimistic about how HUD would be
Yes.
receiving this. What does that mean specifically? Have they said this is a great idea, go for it? Will HUD have to approve every single development, 62
I'll turn to Alicia, Stan, Vito, but just to say, one, it's a policy that has worked, so that's the first reason we're optimistic. It has worked in practice, including right here in New York City, and HUD has encouraged public housing authorities to use this. Two, I think we've had very productive conversations with HUD that certainly leave us feeling like they want to see this be a crucial part of what we do going forward. But I'll leave it to my colleagues to fill it in.
So yes, we've had very collaborative conversations with HUD around how to get this effort underway, and the fact that we are here today is a testament to the fact that we've been able to build some of those bridges and deal with some of the issues, because NYCHA is a very complex and the largest authority by far, and many of the programs were not designed necessarily to accommodate some of the issues that we have here. So we've been in extensive conversations with them, and we've closed this transaction with HUD just last week, as well as the Ocean Bay transaction. There are several more to close this year. Each time we convert something to Section 8, we do have to get approval from HUD under something called Section 18. So it's an ongoing relationship, and I feel very good about where we are now, and we'll continue to work with them. We have briefed them on the broad outlines of this effort, yes.
Jillian.
Mr. Mayor, could I just say
yes,
that
go ahead,
on the congressional level, we have been talking with HUD also previously, and now that we're in charge on the House side, and there's going to be a number of members who are, I know Emmanuel Cleaver, for example, he may be, or Lacey Clay, the chair of the Housing Committee on the Financial Services Committee. We are looking to have a meeting further with Secretary Carson, and I can tell you that it's going to be very much on the top of our agenda in regards to HUD. And the one thing that we've been able to agree upon with them has been nothing much, to be quite honest with you. But one of the things that Carson has been promoting is RAD, and wanting to invest and get involved in RAD. I can tell you that's the only one thing that we've been talking about, and we've been going at it head and head, but RAD has been that one area of which we seem to have some type of an agreement and want to move forward on.
Amen. Jillian.
Mayor, just to follow up on Courtney's first question, you just said that you didn't know those health department reports were being challenged, but I mean, we've been, the letter has been published for a year at this point. You've known about it longer than that, before it was made public in a DOI report. How is this not something that would have come up earlier than a few months ago?
Again, I want to really make sure we understand this, because the question's been asked in a lot of ways, and I feel like it's been answered, so I'm going to try again. Today's article points out the sheer totality of the problem and how long mistakes were made. But it also points out that for all of us coming in the door, we were focused on a host of other challenges in NYCHA. This is just plain fact. If you go back, just look at the year 2014. Look at the 2013 citywide debate that was the mayoral campaign, and look at 2014, the issues of that year in public housing. In the campaign, people were talking about what was going to happen on development, how do you avoid privatization, a whole host of issues. In the first year, number one issue was crime in NYCHA developments. And a huge amount of energy went that year into reducing crime successfully. This issue was not on the radar, and it's just the honest truth. In fact, it is part of the reality, and I wish we had like perfect field vision. I wish we could see everything happening in the whole city at all times. It's just not the honest truth. We rely on a whole host of community groups, resident associations, elected officials, the media, et cetera, to bring issues forward in addition to everything we do all day. Once it started to be clear that there was something fundamentally wrong, piece by piece we have tried to address the lead issues. So now we have a lead czar for the first time, working to coordinate all citywide efforts under a Vision Zero strategy, which the city never had, which says we're going to eradicate lead poisoning once and for all in New York City. We've come down 90% since 2005, which is stunning progress for this city. We're going to end it once and for all. We're going to make sure that any young people affected get the treatment they need. It's never been the approach. It will be the approach now. As each piece of the equation has been presented, we're trying to fundamentally change things. So I am telling you a factual statement. If anyone had presented to me along the way that these reports from the Department of Health were being contested, that would have been the day that we started the process of turning that around. It has now been ended once and for all.
I guess my question, though, isn't, why were we doing this in 2013? If this has been in the headlines.
Bless you.
Why did this aspect of it, you didn't think it was mentioned in the last?
Because I think, honestly, the problem had been, thank God, had gotten a lot better over the years. Like I said, that 90% reduction since 2005. There were a host of other problems that were very urgent. This, again, I respect if anyone in the media or in any in elective office says, why were we not able to do everything at once? The honest truth is, we have a huge number of things we're trying to do just when it comes to public housing, let alone everything else we do. We respond to both an agenda. We brought in an agenda, what we wanted to do to try and help NYCHA, starting with ending the payments to the police department, ending the fact that NYCHA had to pay taxes to the city of New York, turning that money back to repairs. If you had said to me on the first day of my administration, what are the central problems in HUD? I would have said safety. I would have said the repairs not being made on a timely basis. And I would have said that NYCHA is still having to pay money to the city of New York instead of keeping that money to fix its own problems and needs. That's what we focused on. The lead issue was not on the front of the discussion, I think in part because a lot of progress had been made, and in part because we didn't realize that some of the things that needed to be happening had stopped, like those inspections. I had no idea the inspections had stopped. Anyone in their right mind would have said they have to be, they're legally mandated, they have to happen. This is reality of how things work as we're trying to make sense of a whole lot of complicated material. But again, what I think residents care about now is what are we doing now? Now we have a lead czar. Now we are using a Vision Zero approach to lead. Now we've invested, between the previous investments and the new ones I mentioned, almost $5 billion that no other administration invested. Now we're trying to move 62,000 apartments to be finally the quality they deserve. That is the way forward for NYCHA. That's what we're focused on.
Might I add, we're going to be inspecting every apartment that was built before the key dates, 132,000.
That had not been previously tested.
132,000 apartments to establish what is a comprehensive baseline, so that we will have all the information we need, we will have corrective action plans.
And this, he's pointing at Vito because it was Vito's idea, and I want to commend him for the idea. In the article today, there's a very important point. In previous administrations, they decided a certain number of buildings didn't have lead in them. They didn't have a whole lot of evidence of that fact. Vito said in a meeting not long after he was named at City Hall, he said, we actually need to go back over everything that we're not 100% confirmed doesn't have lead. And I remember the meeting vividly. He said it's going to cost us a whole lot of money, and it's going to lead to a lot more work. Now again, what do most people do in government? They try to minimize exposure and minimize cost and minimize the amount of obligation. He looked me in the eye and suggested the exact opposite. He was 100% right. So now 140,000 apartments are going to be tested once and for all to determine if they have lead or not, and then we act accordingly. Greg.
I think you've used the term consent decree once since we've been sitting here. And the situation is, as far as I can tell, is that you guys have signed up for this thing. You're married to it, as is the housing authority. But the judge has a different plan. And specifically, the judge has brought up a couple of times now receivership. My question is, how do you feel about receivership? There's two kinds, there's judicial and there's administrative. Where are you on that?
I think it would be a huge mistake for the people of public housing in this city, because it will take the decision-making power someplace else, and we don't know what that will lead to. It's as simple as that. Now, I want to contest you just a little, because I have read that decision over and over. I think the judge says he'd like to see HUD play a more central role. We're going to go back to, again, this is my interpretation, having read it. He points out all the tools that HUD has, and he would like HUD to play a more central role in resolving this issue. Now, we have until the middle of December to go back. We're going to work with HUD, we're going to work with the U.S. Attorney, NYCHA, the city, everyone together to try and figure out a way forward that's productive. But I, for one, believe that there's a better chance of the problems being solved with the leadership we have now and the structure we have now, rather than a receivership. The receivership's a great unknown. Now we are putting in place, step by step, a series of fundamental reforms, like what we're talking about today. We are absolutely committed to fixing these 62,000 apartments. We're going to put in the resources we need to. We're going to do the work. I have confidence that will happen. So I'd rather stay with a plan that I know can be achieved rather than open up a whole nother world. So I'm going to work with all of the players. But if you ask me my personal opinion, which you did, I believe we have a better chance of solving the problems with the approach we have now than with, again, the great unknown. Yes, Monica.
Live on Facebook. I was supposed to be at Murphy houses today. They don't have heated hot water for 3 weeks. People are suffering all across our city. What do you tell them? They think this is too little too late. They think you move too slow when it comes to fixing things. And in April, we were on the rooftop and we told you, we're asking about lighting. When you get serious, you told a lot of us that you were on top of things. How can we trust you now that you are on top of this light issue? And what is moving forward? What is the plan? What is the plan for this? Will people be pushed out of their homes? Are you serious concerns about that?
No, the congressman can speak to this from personal experience. The work that was done in Ocean Bay was done while keeping the residents in their homes. Clearly, we believe in public housing and serving the people right now in public housing. Don't want to see anyone pushed out. Another reason to Greg's question that I am concerned when I see ideas like receivership is the history of, in a lot of places, other parts of government coming in doesn't always mean that the people who are in public housing benefit. I worry a lot about some of the bad history in this country of developments being torn down and there never being a place for people. Here at Ocean Bay, and Congressman, if you describe it, it's fixed in place with the residents right there. Hold on, you go ahead.
Let me tell you, and I think that you should go, because I want to bring the congressional delegations out to come visit and see it. And we've got tenants here too from Ocean Bay. They will tell you now, what happens is people are still living there. And what they did was there's times, because when you're renovating an apartment, there is inconveniences, no question. But there were lounges that were put in place for folks to go while people were still working in their house so that they'd have a nice place to rest, and they were making sure that they were able to eat, and because it's major renovation that's being done. But nobody was put out or had to go someplace else, and it was all done while folks continued to live there, and they saw that their apartments were going on. And you'd have those, as it would take place, you got to try to have timing and things of that nature, but they were working with the residents. And I think overall, if you talk to the people that lived there, that went through the process, they will tell you that they were more than satisfied with how it was done.
Can I ask, hold on, who's here from Ocean Bay, anyone? Okay, so just for colleagues in the media, take a look at the hands that are up. Put your hands up one more time, Ocean Bay people, if you want to talk to any of the folks who actually went through it and actually have benefited. Have you benefited?
Hello, Leader Miller.
Have you benefited?
Yes.
All right, it worked. Who else is here, Ocean Bay? All right. What are your names?
Iris Collado.
Iris?
Jocelyn Moran.
All right, very good. Anyone else this side? Okay, talk to those folks after. I have visited NYCHA for years and years. I'm going to visit NYCHA. I'm not playing by your rules. I'm playing by what's right for the people of New York City. I'm going to visit NYCHA on a regular basis, as I always have. I would like to see them, and I have for years and years, and I'll be back again, and I am right now at NYCHA. But the point is, how do you know people are serious? Because we've put $5 billion into doing this, and no other administration did that, because we've brought in leaders who are clearly proven at fixing problems, because we have shown a path forward, and we're going to be showing a lot more by the end of the year. Who else? Go ahead.
Who are the managing companies?
Louder?
Who are the managing companies that will be running these developments?
I know in the case Ocean Bay, I'm forgetting.
Ocean Bay, it's MDG and Wavecrest.
MDG and Wavecrest in that case, but could someone among the three of you describe how those companies and organizations and nonprofits are recruited?
It's a combination. So actually today also we have Susan, who's here from Wavecrest, Wavecrest, who's a terrific manager who manages a lot of affordable housing around the city. All of the folks who wind up managing and operating the Section 8 developments are chosen through a competitive process. And we put out solicitations at various times across the year, and teams respond. And they often respond with a construction manager, an operating company, a nonprofit. And so here today, this is a good example of the kind of partnership you would have. You'd have a contractor, Wavecrest, a couple of social service providers, including Catholic Charities and Bronx Works, so that residents are also getting services as part of the package. So it's done on a competitive basis, and we'll be rolling those out quarterly to every half a year to solicit more folks so that we could have wider participation across the boroughs. Yes, yes, you must have had experience in sort of the relative size and scale of the development that we'd like you to be participating in, right? So depending on the size of the bundles, as we call them, various groups will be matched with projects as we roll them out.
Okay, way back.
Louder.
What kind of relationship will NYCHA have with these tenants after the renovations are made? Will NYCHA, if they have a problem with their apartment, do they call 311? Or do they call these construction or management companies?
So again, Greg, anytime you want to jump in with what the day-to-day is at Ocean Bay to give people a live experience, the question was, when people need a repair or have a problem, who do they turn to?
They turn to, in this case, to Wavecrest, who's running the facilities, and they go in and they, have their mechanisms for repairs. What we also have there's a community person that from the developments that are working, and so they help expedite it also. They're talking to the tenants on a day-to-day basis to try to make sure that where there is some repair work that needs to be done, that conversation is happening, and so that it's done in a very timely fashion. So they turn directly to the individuals at Wavecrest, who is the managing agent.
Okay, way back, yes.
The question I have is outside management companies can do the job better than what NYCHA was doing, and we see that here at Betances, and we see it at Ocean Bay. Doesn't that kind of beg the question then, why not give everything over to other folks to manage if NYCHA is doing such a horrible job?
So I appreciate the spirit of the question. I want to tell you the world is a whole lot more complex than that. And you guys are trying to boil it down. I get that. We have an obligation, all of us here, to serve 400,000 people, and we have to be really precise about how we do it. If the current structure of NYCHA could achieve everything we needed to achieve, could suddenly receive $32 billion and we could make all the other reforms we want to make, we would stick with that structure. We don't have another way to get the money in on the level we need without going to this RAD/project-based Section 8 approach, which is a public-private partnership. It's the only way we get the money. It also brings in management companies, for-profit, non-profit, that are really good at what they do. So it ends up being a division of labor. Wherever we can get that to work, we do that. We focus the rest of our energies on the traditional structure and trying to continually improve that. And I do think there have been serious improvements over the years in that traditional structure. We have a lot more to do to make it work better, but it began by giving back the money to NYCHA to make repairs, for example, which was something that wasn't happening for a long time. So I think the honest answer is we need to do both. We don't have a magic wand that turns everything into project-based Section 8. That's not conceivable today, but we can turn a lot into it and focus the rest of our energies on the existing stuff. Yes?
Some of the folks who were briefed on the solution plan said that there's consideration being given to more market rate housing, or a greater share of market rate housing when you do private development. So the number I heard was a 70-30 ratio of market rate to affordable. I know that's not being rolled out today. I was just wondering if you could talk about what your feelings on that are, and perhaps some of the plans for the future.
I will speak to that when we come back with the next piece. Definitely the development issue is going to be a part of this plan, and we need development to achieve the most we can for the residents of the immediate area. So what you will see, I can just say it in a very broad stroke, is a much greater focus on any new development benefiting the surrounding houses in the maximum way. But we'll come back on what that's going to look like. Another thing we'll certainly talk about is air rights. That's been out there previously. That is a piece of the plan. It's not a huge piece, but it's a helpful piece. We're going to get our hands on everything we can. We haven't come up with a grand name for this 2.0 concept, but it's basically taking the next generation plan, which did have some really strong elements, and building upon them, and we'll come back with the formal plan by the end of the year. Yes?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Congressman Flake, because I grew up in Bronx.
No, that's his predecessor. Congressman Meeks here.
HUD Regional Administrator Lynn Patterson and Borough President Diaz recently visited the Patterson housing here in the Bronx. Money was allocated in 2011 for new boilers, but on their visit, they're seeing another temporary boiler being put in. Why is that? And Regional Administrator Patterson said that the city gets $2.5 million for NYCHA from the federal government. Will that improve now that the Democrats are in control?
Okay, I'll just make a comment on the second one. I think on the first one, Vito's the best person to speak to it. I think Greg Meeks is going to have a lot to say on that question. Democrats are control the House.
That's right.
That's a huge difference maker. Senator Schumer is the Democratic leader in the Senate. He's already shown, even from the minority, he could move some resources that were helpful to public housing. I'm very hopeful about how all this comes together. I don't think anything, bluntly, will achieve as much as we need until we have Democratic control of the House, Senate, and the presidency. But I think we have a great opportunity to at least take a step forward. Congressman, what would you say?
Yeah, I think that we still got, we got 1/3, we need the other 2/3. But we're going to look to see what we can do collectively, where we can agree upon. I talked about Secretary Carson, that we don't agree on much. The one area that I found that we did agree upon was RAD. So we're going to try to work with them on RAD. And try to see what we can do to get those resources there so that for public housing. But it is difficult. We're going to be able now in the House to stop some of the horrendous things because the president won't have a blank check to just do what he wants to do and get it approved by the Republicans in the House. We can now block that. We can also now send some decent bills to the Senate. And see if, in fact, some of the Republicans there would want to work with us so that we can pass something on a bipartisan basis.
Yeah, and on that one, there are senators who happen to be Republican, but who still have a whole lot of public housing in their states. So there's a real chance for some bipartisanship there. On the question of that specific boiler, Vito?
So I'm sorry, you said Patterson, correct? Yes. Right, so the replacement of the heating plant at Patterson is underway. Right, what we've done is we've taken out the old, inefficient oil-fired mobile unit under the contract for the replacement of the heating plant, and we're putting in a new gas-fired mobile unit, and that's only going to be in place until the reconstruction of the heating plant is conducted. Excuse me? So it's underway now. It just started, and we anticipate that we'll have it done in about a year. Full replacement.
Okay. He'll follow up with you on any details.
Yes.
Few more on NYCHA, then we're going to go to other topics. Yes?
Could you give us an idea of any of the developments that are part of these 62,000 apartments?
So it's one, I'll start and then turn to these folks. List continues to be developed, and that is an interactive process with HUD to determine which the final ones can be. But anything else you all want to say to that?
It's also interactive with the tenants and tenant leadership. So we will be working on developing that.
Stay close to this.
We will be working on developing that list in the coming months. We have several that are slated for between now and the early part of next year, and then we will get on a regular timetable. But there is a consultative process, including especially tenants and tenant leadership.
Can I urge, and I don't know if this has already been thought of by people at NYCHA and at City Hall, but I think it would be very smart to organize a formal media visit to Ocean Bay that the congressman could be at for any members of the media who want to see it. Obviously, you can go on your own time too, but I think it'd be helpful to organize something with a formal tour with the management companies, et cetera, so people can hear about how it works. Last call, yes.
The selection of developments, will that be based on need, the ones that are most dilapidated?
There are criteria of which dilapidation is a key part. We're also interested in doing some of the projects that are sort of removed on outlier so that we can sort of take them out of the sphere of day-to-day management by NYCHA. And the criteria starts with the condition of the developments, and 62,000 units is close to a third of what we've got, so there will be quite a few that meet that criteria.
And I want to emphasize, as we bring out the bigger plans later on in the year, we're going to be talking about the things we have to do for some developments that have a lot of need but would not make sense for RAD, because that's another part of the plan. Okay, last call on NYCHA, yes?
What are the specific renovations that are starting right now with Betances, and when will they start?
What's the timeline on Betances? And I mean, I'm just going to say, as you heard about Ocean Bay, it's everything. I mean, no, it progresses, and we'll get you, I think we should get you the history of Ocean Bay and Compost so you understand how it works, but it's ultimately everything. It is done in a way that does not displace the tenants, the residents. But, say again?
Do you know what they're doing first? Do you know what they're starting on first?
Couldn't hear that.
Do you know what they're working on first? Like what?
We can get you that, but does anyone know when the timeline is?
We don't have the exact timeline.
But someone's trying to hand you paper, I can see it.
You know, Susan knows.
January.
We started this weekend cleaning up, and we're starting to put,
Susan knows.
January. I like that kind of answer.
two-year timeframe in total for all construction.
I feel like a ventriloquist. Starts in January, 2-year time frame. Let's get you a sense of what happens when, but again, I think the previous ones will be very instructive about how it progresses.
Is the federal government picking up the whole tab for all of these renovations?
Public-private.
What percentage?
So, Alicia, you want to try and break down how that works? Simple. She knows too much.
I'm going to be very simple.
Simple.
Under public housing, you get a certain amount of money per unit to operate. Under Section 8, you get more money. So we use the money per unit partially to operate the building. Well, Wavecrest will be operating these buildings, and then the balance of the money, we can go out and borrow money in order to fix up the buildings. So the difference between converting from Section 9 to Section 8 is it just gives the authority more resources, some of which go into running the buildings, and the balance go to support the loan, which is what these guys will use to fix up the buildings.
I'm going to try and make that even simpler, and I want to ask our friends in communications for NYCHA and City Hall, you need a fact sheet badly to explain how this piece works, because it took me several times to get the nuance. The federal government has the authority to give you the additional resources. The additional resources allow you, working with the private sector, to bring in private financing. So it's a multi-step process, but what it results in is cash money that you can use to fix buildings that you would not have if you were just relying on the regular direct subsidies for public housing. But let's get the step-by-step to show how that process works.
Wavecrest, are these Wavecrest employees now that are doing the repairs and responding? And then where does that leave?
Yes.
Where does that leave the NYCHA employees?
The NYCHA employees, I've said publicly, I'll reiterate, all current NYCHA employees, we need them. We have a lot of work to do. They're all going to have work to do in the NYCHA system. They might move to a different development to do some of that work, but they're going to be working for NYCHA.
Just to follow up on that question, do you expect any assessment teams there to represent?
I think there'll be concerns, but I think the most central thing any union is concerned about is everyone who's got a job going to be able to keep their job? And the answer is yes. If it's NYCHA, go for it.
In the report, or the letter that the DOI commissioner sent today, he said that he got a call from your first deputy mayor, Tony Patoris, on the day of your re-election, in fact, November 7th, telling him not to come forward with that report. And without that report, we talked earlier about not knowing things and being glad that things came to light. It really was that report that started, bringing a lot of public attention onto all of the failures that happened in NYCHA. Now, why would it be that a member of your administration would try and withhold, or get him to withhold a report on that subject?
Look, I don't accept the commissioner's interpretation of what happened in many instances. We've consistently cooperated with DOI over 5 years on a whole host of investigations. We'll continue to going forward. Margaret Garnett, I am convinced, is going to be a great DOI commissioner. She has extraordinary background. So the bottom line is we consistently cooperated. This is one where you remember the U.S. Attorney had already been deeply engaged. I think that was one of the nuances there of respecting the U.S. Attorney's work and being mindful of that. but I want to be crystal clear. Anything they were doing, they will continue to do. But let me hold you on your follow-up for a second, because I think we've left the pure NYCHA. You were very good about trying to define the line there. I appreciate that. So I want to give the good people behind us who have been patiently standing a chance to get to someplace else, and thank you all and wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Want to leave? It's your chance. Thank you, Pat. I appreciate that.
Except for us.
Back to David. Okay, continue, David.
Quick follow-up on that second question, but the follow-up is just, so you're saying that essentially in that interaction with...
Hold on. Okay, everyone, keep it down. We're trying to listen to the question. Go ahead.
Interaction that Peters was summarizing, you're saying actually part of that had to do with First Deputy Mayor Shore saying maybe, there's this federal investigation going on, and so that's the reason not to come forward? Is that
One, I wasn't part of that conversation, the best I remember, and I don't remember it being reported to me. Two, in every instance with DOI, we respected that DOI had a job to do. In fact, if you look at the record, we provide a lot of resources to DOI for additional inspectors and more investigations, additional investigators, I should say, and more investigations. So it was very clear that all of us understood DOI has a job to do, they're going to do it independently. In the instance that you refer to, I'm only giving you a background point, which was the real origination of a lot of the information was the U.S. Attorney investigation that started over 2 years ago. And we tend to be very respectful of federal investigations and allowing them to achieve what they need to achieve. So that's only just for background on that case.
In general, is it ever appropriate for you or a member of your administration to request a POI that they withhold or not make public a report that was meant to aid the...
It's absolutely, let me define it, because I want to put it in my own words. To debate what to do about findings is 100% appropriate. To understand if the findings are accurate, to ask tough questions, to understand what the recommendations are. Not every recommendation is going to be perfect. Some are accepted instantly. Some are debated. That's normal. To talk about how to make sure that the report is complete, how to make sure the agency had a chance to respond. These are all pertinent parts of the process. But what's 100% clear is whatever investigations DOI has initiated, they were always respected. They were seen through to completion. Any existing investigations that they choose to continue, we will absolutely respect their right to do so. And the new commissioner, who has an outstanding record at the Southern District, which is the gold standard in law enforcement and prosecution, and at the Attorney General's office, is going to have the independence to follow through not only on existing investigations, but any new ones that she deems fit. Yes?
Just a quote from Peter's letter, it says, including a late night screening call from the mayor and immediate calls, which I was pressured to not issue certain reports, including a report exposing lead paint safety hazards at NYCHA, suggest an attempt to punish and intimidate DOI for its past work. Did you call?
False. It's just false. I'm sure I had conversations with Mr. Peters, and I'm sure I had disagreements, but that characterization is false. Yes? Yeah?
The commissioner lists a whole long list of investigations from ACS to corrections to NYCHA letter to the NYPD, where he says members of your administration or you yourself asked him not to release the investigation. In effect, the chief sits the investigation.
False. False. It is, look, unfortunately, this is an individual who did some very inappropriate things. There was an independent investigation by a respected investigator who he handpicked and found that he had done inappropriate things. I am exercising my authority under the charter to make sure that there's a change in that office and we bring in someone new and independent and strong. But those characterizations are not fair and not accurate. Yeah. I can only say I'm not here to interpret his words. I know what he's saying there is not accurate. And there were times when there was real professional discussion about specific issues and specific agencies. That's normal, but never an attempt in any way to undermine an investigation.
Over the past year, I think the New York Post and maybe in the Daily News and other places, that you were considering firing him, that you were compiling a dossier on him. And some of those reports preceded his takeover of the CI. So could you speak to that? I mean, were you ever considering getting rid of him before that move that he made?
I'm not going to go into the personnel process and the details. I will only say this. There continue to be questions about other actions he took. I believe there's still some of those being looked at. What's in the McGovern report that you've seen is one set of concerns, but you're also right that at one point a document was leaked that did accurately portray other concerns that have been brought to us by employees. So what's in the McGovern report to date is not the only set of complaints that we received, and that's really, to my mind, unusual to have that kind of level of concern about a DOI commissioner in terms of acting appropriately. But the McGovern report, having provided an objective outside assessment, to me was the straw that broke the camel's back. And as I described the other day, the last step in the process was finding a suitable replacement, and we found one.
So in Mr. Peters' letter, he sort of characterizes that he told Zachary Carter and Team Pullman
his intent to merge SCI, and they never expressed any concern. He kind of made it seem like it was a setup. What's your interpretation?
I interpret it the same way the McGovern report interprets it. He gave some kind of summary. He didn't, from everything, I mean, that report is quite exhaustive, did not make clear the full ramification in the midst of a long agenda with other things on it, didn't ask support or assent. When they went and tried to get some assent from the Department of Education, they didn't get it. No, this was not the right way to do things. On something of that magnitude, it should have been presented with all the pros and cons, the real legal questions. And as I said the other day, you know, Anastasia Coleman was asking a central legal question. Is what he was trying to do legal? And the answer was no. Go ahead.
A video surfaced last week showing a bomb detection dog at the Staten Island ferry, alerting its handler of what may have been a potential explosive device. Instead of, immediately securing the area, the bag and the bag owner, etc., which security experts say should have happened, the bag was left to sit there for minutes as commuters and children were passing right by it. And people in the video can also be seen, security personnel at the ferry can be seen talking on their cell phones over the bag, which security experts also say could have detonated an explosive device had it been inside of the bag. Have you seen the video, and what are your thoughts? And do you think that security at the Staten Island ferry need to be retrained in how to respond to these kinds of...
So, two-part answer. One, in terms of stopping terrorism, the track record of the NYPD has been exceptional. So I have tremendous faith in the NYPD, and particularly in the counter-terror units that we have created and built up in recent years. That said, any instance where an individual might not have done what they should have done, we have to look into. I haven't seen the video. I will look at it, but more importantly, I'll talk to Commissioner O'Neill about it directly. And if something different has to be done with that officer or those officers, or with the overall approach to the Staten Island Ferry Terminal, we will do it, because we take this stuff very, very seriously. Yes? No, over here. I'm going off then to you.
From the Mark Peters letter, he wrote about a January 2017 report on ACS that was focusing on its 24-hour call center. It was highly critical of ACS, and he wrote the quote, and this is January 2017, quote, "I received a call from the mayor in which he asked me not to release this ACS report."
Again, false. I will only say broadly, there have been conversations about reports, about accuracy, about specific recommendations, all sorts of things, but never a conversation where there was an effort to inhibit the actions of DOI on a specific report. It's just not right. That's all I have to say. Go ahead.
When you say it's false, you're alleging that he's lying, correct?
I'm not going to characterize it. I'm saying that statement is false.
Mayor, do you have any idea why he would feel that way?
I am not going to get inside his head. Go ahead.
Do you think that there's a universe in which you calling a city watchdog and talking to him about that report at all, or telling him that it might be inaccurate, would in any way indicate a pressure to not listen?
No, not in the least, because look at all the reports that were released consistently. Even when we debated specific concerns within them, report after report after report, look at all the extra resources that were provided to DOI to do more reports on more topics. Not at all.
The governor was on Brian Lehrer this morning, and he says he's against any fare increase by the MTA, and he also said he thinks that there is an inequitable system of some bridges having tolls and some not having tolls, and he wants to review that and thinks there should be tolls on the bridges as part of the congestion pricing program.
I want to see what he said specifically, because I haven't seen that or heard that yet. I've made clear that the Governor's Commission, which I think came up with an important breakthrough, which was to see congestion pricing separate from the status of East River bridges. I thought that was a really important breakthrough. So again, this sounds different, but I don't want to characterize it until I've heard it. No, I've been very, very clear. I haven't been in favor of the previous versions of congestion pricing. I've started to open my mind because I got away from the bridges. So, you know, I'll take a look at it. But the more important point is, the only way we could proceed with any vision like that is by addressing the issues of fairness to the outer boroughs and addressing issues of fairness to individual New Yorkers. That's conceivable to do, but that's going to be a long discussion with the legislature as well. Yes?
Peter's letter describes Anthony Shores calling him up and telling him to basically hold off on releasing and actually not to release NYCHA lead paint November 2017 report. So, and you've said that there have been conversations about accuracy, maybe timing, things like that. So what were the conversations preceding that conversation?
I can't review that for you. Just can't tell you, my friend. You can speak in a sonorous voice all you want. I can't recall to you exactly what happened that night and one thing and another. Just not going to even pretend. Back there.
Mr. Mayor, the Chancellor put Lorenzo and I met in June, and I asked him why are Bronx public schools not performing as the rest of the city. His answer was the mayor and I know that Bronx public schools are not performing as they should. I'm new here, he had to get back to me, which he hasn't. I saw the teacher's contract and the Bronx plan. Okay, do you think that's going to work? Because that was tried 10 years ago, and it didn't work. And I spoke.
No, wait, whoa. It was not tried 10 years ago. What we're talking about in this thing, this new contract with the UFT has never been tried. Excuse me, I've been over this history. We can agree to disagree if you like, but it's never been tried on the level we're talking about before of a huge number of schools and a systematic approach to provide extra incentives in the subject matters where we have a lack of teachers and the places where we have a lack of teachers. It's never been tried on this scale, and it's never been tried with the agreement of the union contractually. So this is something that people tried to achieve for years. We're the ones to achieve it. I think it's going to have a huge positive impact in the Bronx. The Bronx schools that have suffered could never turn the corner until they could get enough quality teachers in the subject matter that they had lacking. That's just a true statement. It's not the only statement, it's not the only factor, but that's part of it. Okay, we'll do a few more. David.
Another element of this letter, there's some ongoing investigations that Mark Peters raised the issue of how those will be effective here, the chilling effect. It brings up an inquiry into how sexual assault and other kind of sex crimes are being investigated in the NYPD. And he says that the head of the Special Victims Division was removed on the same day that he himself was fired, and he alleges that was done because of information that was given to his investigators by that same head of SPD.
That's false. And I'm sorry he has delusions of grandeur thinking everything revolves around him, but the fact is, we had told you for months there was a major leadership change at the NYPD when Dermot Shea became chief of detectives. We said at that time there was a full review being done of SVU. In fact, not only the DOI report, but a number of other advocates had raised real concerns about the personnel levels at SVU and whether changes needed to be made. I think a lot of you have watched the work of Dermot Shea for a long time. He's an outstanding public servant. He undertook a very objective review, came to the conclusion that a number of changes had to be made. That discussion had been going on internally for a while. It was announced when it was announced, had nothing to do with the other matters. And I believe it was the right thing to do to move that unit forward. Two more.
So, Mr. Mayor, as far as you know or have the information, no one in your administration has ever requested of the DOI commissioner to suppress the output of a report, right?
You can talk about specifics in a report and never, ever suppress it or want to suppress it or believe it should be suppressed. Every report that was started was followed through on, and that was how it worked.
Were you ever concerned enough about Mr. Peters to tape a conversation you were having with him?
Me personally, no. No. Okay, last one back there. Yep.
Mayor, in his letter, Mr. Peters says that Mr. McGovern never recommended that he be fired. He recommended that discipline be a letter he put into his file. So why did you go further?
because I looked at what was in that report and I found it unbecoming of a public servant, particularly one who is supposed to hold the highest standards of integrity. That's the job, is the integrity job. And where those fundamental problems were being portrayed objectively, again, by an investigator he handpicked, when I saw the fullness of that, I said, this is just not an acceptable situation. It can't go on. We need someone more objective, more independent, more effective, and we have that person in Margaret Garnett. Thanks, everyone.